Welcome back to another review. I have a microphone in from FIFINE, and this came in via Gearbest. Hope I pronounced that correctly. This is a budget microphone, so we're just going to do some tests later on to see how it fares. The overall build on this is okay, it's not bad. It's mostly metal on the case. It's not as thick or as hefty as the BC Master that I looked at, but it seems to be okay. There's a bit of play on the two knobs that you get with this, just from left to right. Again, it's not something which is going to particularly bother me with a microphone at this price point, but it's just worth mentioning. For some reason they've gone with a 4-pin connector on this for XLR, which is a bit unusual. I'll get onto that later on. Now I'll cover some of the key specifications. This is using a Cardioid pattern or Uni-directional, so it's going to be covering from mostly one area and excluding all around, so it's going to be more focused. This is the cable that you get supplied, and it's quite a long one, fortunately. 2.5 meters, USB on one side and the XLR on the other. And this is the stand that they give you. It's okay. It got a bit of flex on one of the legs, but once it's in position, it locks down okay. Now there's an adapter included, which I will talk about in a second. And this is the clamp to position the microphone in. You've got foam pads on that. Again, it's all right for the price. This is about $25. 22 euro the microphone, so it's not an expensive mic. It's adequate. It's not as good as some microphones that I've seen, but it's acceptable for the price point. You can also screw in the 3/8 adapter to the base, so you can attach it to a stand if you want to. Now you do get a foam cover included. This almost does the same thing as a pop filter. It's not quite the same, but you'll get a similar effect, so it should help reduce background noises and speech when you're talking directly into the microphone. So we'll screw in the tripod. It does take a bit of effort to put that in. Plastic threads, it's okay. It's going to do the job as long as you don't abuse it too much. And we'll plug in the connector. Now most XLR connectors are 3-pin. I used to actually make XLR connectors with Nitric when I was with them. That was a strange company, but a good product. Anyway, it's not a standard connector, so you're going to find it's difficult to get a replacement. Or perhaps would have gone with something a bit more standardized. The user guide has not particularly good English, but it does give you some information which you can work through and fairly clear diagrams. Just a quick shot showing the microphone stood up. You can adjust the angle on this, and I'll get onto this a bit later on. But you go into the settings on Windows 10, I'm showing you here, and you will see the microphone as a plug and play device. Then you'll be able to see the levels come up on the screen, so you'll be able to check. This has just changed recently with Windows, but it gives you some idea. What you need to do is go into the properties section, and then you'll be able to make some adjustments to the levels yourself. Now I found that the microphone is very sensitive at the top setting, but I reduce it to sort of around about the mid 80s. And you also have that control on the microphone for the volume, which makes a difference as well. So don't put it up too high. The idea with this is going to be to move in a bit closer, which will give you more clarity on the voice. If you have it right the way up, it will pick up noises from a good distance away, but you'll get quite a lot of background noise, and it will be quite a thin noise. So it's quite an important point with a microphone, or any microphone, not just this one. Some microphones work much better up close, and this is one of those, so that's worth bearing in mind. Now there's a couple of programs I use. There's got the basic audio one that I use here, the Move Video audio recorder rather, and you can just do basic recordings with that, and it will give you an idea of the levels on the screen. You can also boost the gain on it in the control there. It's quite simple, but it works okay. Another alternative is Voicemeeter, which is a donationware software that's particularly useful if you're doing live streams. You can control the processing directly from that, and it's quite comprehensive, as is Audacity, which will let you record directly into it, open source software, and you can also edit audio in this. So what I'm going to do now is run through with some audio tests so you can hear the microphone for yourself compared to other mics. I'm now recording, and I'm going to gradually increase the echo control. So I'm starting off with 0 echo and then moving it up. I'm about 30% now, and then going to move up a bit more, around about 50%. Now I'm going to turn it all the way up to the top setting on the microphone for echo, and this is the highest setting for echo on the microphone. In the summer of this year we made a journey towards Transylvania and went over the old ground which was, and is, to us, so full of vivid and terrible memories. It was almost impossible to believe that the things which we had seen with our own eyes and heard with her own ears were living truths. Every trace of all that had been was blotted out. The castle stood as before, reared high above a waste of desolation. In the summer of this year we made a journey towards Transylvania, and went over the old ground which was, and is, to us, so full of vivid and terrible memories. It was almost impossible to believe that the things which we had seen with our own eyes, and heard with our own ears were living truths. Every trace of all that had been was blotted out. The castle stood as before, reared high above a waste of desolation. In the summer of this year we made a journey to Transylvania, and went over the old ground which was, and is, to us so full of vivid and terrible memories. It was almost impossible to believe that the things which we had seen with our own eyes, and heard with our own ears were living truths. Every trace of all that had been was blotted out. The castle stood as before, reared high above a waste of desolation. Few points to note with the microphone. The USB gaming headset is actually pretty good, but you have to do a lot of processing with it. On this microphone, the positioning is really important, as well as tweaking around on the settings, and you can get a decent sound out of it for the price, but I will let you be a judge of that listening to the recordings. You can of course adjust the treble and bass yourself depending on the software, so not a bad little mic. Would have changed the connector though to a more common one, but certainly worth looking at this price point.